What's up, 360 Suite fans? This is Bruno with 360 Suite today, joining from Boston, Massachusetts. Thanks all for joining. We're going to have an awesome time all together during the next hour. As all of you know, 360 Suite has been known for over 15 years to provide solutions to help organizations migrate their business object deployments from one version to another, from on-prem to the cloud, or even from a database to another. With the recent popularity, or actually I should say increased popularity of SAP Analytics Cloud, or even Tableau or Power BI, our customers have asked us, well, what are the best ways to move to these platforms or to run hybrid? One thing I can actually tell you is, decommissioning is actually, it's a very tricky, expensive, and long process. In particular, if you go away from SAP, because actually SAP's got some nice things to help to connect between SAC and BusinessObjects. So overall, that process is, I just want to stress, it's quite tricky and lengthy, and we'll talk about during the event today. Today, during this webinar, we're going to share together a methodology that we based on the years of experience we've got in the industry on how you can move or how you can decommission in 10 steps BusinessObjects. Patrick, I see you're on as well, and you're looking at my on my hat, so I have to say, actually, no, sorry about it. I put the wrong hat,
You found the light, Bruno. You found the light.
No, actually, I can't support the Canadiens anymore. Is basically, you need to start to support the Maple Leafs because they have the edge on, your favorite Canadien teams. And you know what? No worries. Is either the Bruins or the Caps will win this year. So you know what?
I can't.
Let's put another cap. So.
I can't support Toronto, Bruno. The only way I'll support Toronto, ever is if they're part of Team Canada. That I'll do it. This is as far as I'll go.
You've got to be part of the US team. So, and you know what? Yeah. The funny thing is I see people from around the world today on this webinar. Says, great. I see right now people from France, people from the UK, people from Canada, people from the US, people from Austria, Denmark. So we've got really a full house today. So that's really, that's great. So, before we begin is basically, as usual, you can make sure that you submit your questions at any time. We'll send to all the people that have joined, or recording after the event. And please take just a few seconds at the end of this webinar just to complete the exit survey. So it's quite easy to do. So before we start, to better focus actually the webinar of today, we've got a first poll where we want to know, what's your guess in terms of decommissioning? How long does it take? So probably from the introduction I did, you might have some hints, but we're just interested to get your guts feeling of how long you think that process is.
It will be interesting to see. There's people who had business objects for a little while, but the majority of you would be 10, 15 years of content, and so many users and so many universes. And then it depends where you're going to. Like Bruno said, if you're going to SAC, might be slightly easier than if you're going to to others, Power BI or Tableau. Or maybe you're not fully decommissioning in that, and we will cover that. Maybe you'll decommission part of your system to something more modern, but you'll keep what BusinessObjects is super good at, and they run both environment in parallel. So yeah, Bruno, I'll close the poll.
Let's share the results. So anyway, no surprise, most people know these are lengthy projects. Patrick, in your consultant experience, what's your guts feeling? What have you seen in reality?
Listen, I have rarely seen company who woke up one morning and say, you know what, that's it, it's over, we'll just rebuild everything from scratch. I've seen it. I've seen it with people who, did not keep up to date and business objects may not have been the #1 solution within an organization, but for everybody who, they use it on a daily basis, they schedule on daily basis, they have maintained consistently their universes. It is a big job, and hopefully we can tell you a bit more about what that job is all about and how we can make that process, a lot simpler.
And realistically, these projects, that they seem to tend to take actually a couple years. And of course, it depends a lot of the size of the platform and how old the environment is. And one thing that we haven't covered is we actually see a lot of environments that said initially, you know what, we want to go away for multiple reasons. And actually, in reality, they use like a hybrid model where they still use BOBJ on one end, for example, around scheduling, because they found out that they can't go away, in particular when it comes to scheduling. And they still use BOBJ quite a bit on that. In fact, we've got a deployment that's, I think, over 200,000 users. And at a time, they told me, oh, Bruno, we're thinking to go away. And finally, they said, you know what, the adoption is still going up for BOBJ. We can't, and we'll use like a hybrid approach. So today, the 10 steps that we put together is if you want to go away. And one thing, the steps are rather technical on what we're going to present. And preparing this presentation with Patrick, Patrick had a great comment to me saying, it's very techy, Bruno, but one important thing is when you talk about decommissioning is before you do anything, understand how people are using their business objects. Are they really using scheduling? Because when it comes to scheduling right now, it's the other solutions are not working in general the same way. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yeah, for sure. And also, we talked about that with Bruno. Of course, you got to involve your users. Tomorrow, if you give them the best solution ever, but they're not ready, they're not trained to use it, that's, the adoption will be poor and the satisfaction will be poor as well. Some of your users have been using business objects or Webby for 10 plus years. You need to keep that in mind, right? It's not just technically speaking building the new equivalent of the universe and the new equivalent of the dashboard, but it's making sure people are ready to step in and they have everything they need to do their job. And so yeah, do involve your users. So Bruno, shall we go from
let's go for the first step. So right now you see the 10 steps and we'll just go one by one. We've prepared some content, and by the way, we've even got an ebook around the topic. And again, you've got some questions, just make sure that you ask them in the chat box and we'll do our best to, based on the time, to get back to you. So Patrick, the first step is, back up your SAP Business Object environment. That sounds like a classic one.
It's, if you choose to decommission by once the new content is built on the new platform, if you choose to remove it in the old environment, make sure you have a backup, because it's quite obvious it's got to happen. Somebody will say, oh, where's that report I used to receive on a quarterly basis? Oh, we deleted the report, we don't know what it was anymore, right? So some people will make the old environment read-only for a little while until the new environment is ready. That's one way to do it. Make sure you back up your security model anyway. But I've seen other companies saying, right, okay, we'll now switch over all of the finance reports. Okay, the finance reports have been built, they've been approved, everybody is happy. They will now remove them from the old environment because, like we've said, it's a 2 years long project. So you will do things in stages. Do keep a backup, but the kind of backup where you can restore individual reports. I know you have a backup of your system database. I know you have a backup of your file store, but somebody one day will say, where's my quarterly finance report? You can't just restore an entire platform to recover one object, right? So make sure you have good backups for obvious reasons.
And, of course, 360 Suite can help you to do this. And we've got a solution that's specifically designed to be running backups. And the nice thing about it is it does like an incremental backup. So you can restore basically down to one object.
It's a massive, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say with 360, you back up everything. It will continue to do your incremental backup, and that's good. But in this context here, if you need to restore something, you can restore just individual content or individual security model or anything you want. It's like it's a giant recycle bin, right? So somebody 3-4 months later says, I want this report back. It will be in there. You restore that one object, and you're done, all via web interface, super quick.
And the backup is like if you were doing any migration project or upgrade, you want to make sure you've got a solid backup that you can use just in case, because things change. And in the past, in fact, we didn't used to talk about backups as the first step for migration projects, but we found out actually in some cases, surprisingly, people didn't have a solid backup. And that's why we thought, it's a risk-free way just to address it, just to put as a step. So let's go to step 2, Patrick. So, definitely here it's around analyzing and assessing your environment. So what can you tell us about that?
Okay, so, right, you have your backup. When you're ready to delete stuff, you're sorted. Now it's time to have a look at what you're reusing today. So we have a few slides on this, so I'll try to not jump the gun straight away here. But in this slide over here, let's talk about the content itself. You'll have some Webby, of course, and universes, no doubt. You may have some Crystal reports. You may have some Excelsius or Explorer, which are no longer supported. Some Lumira as well, content. So BusinessObjects has a lot of different BI tools, and these content need to be recreated in Tableau, in Power BI, in SAC, or whatever it is. Now, this process is not only time consuming, it's risky, and you don't want to, again, give something to the business they don't want. So we talked about asking working with the users already. So right, okay, finance team, we have these reports here. Are you using them? Are they doing what you want? You may decide that some content needs to be rebuilt differently. It's quite likely going to be like that anyway. But at least with 360, and I'll do a quick technical demo in a few minutes, we give you the ability to go inside the Webbies, inside the universes, inside the Crystal and the Lumiras, so you can see, right, this finance report has these formulas. Formulas is probably the hardest thing sometimes. How did you achieve that summary number? Well, that summary number is based on these universe objects, which were, calculated this way, and these formulas inside the Webby, so they were transformed even furthermore. Well, you can document all this, work with your users and say, hey, your finance reports had these fields, these formulas, these calculations, all of these things. Is it what you want us to rebuild for you in this new environment? Yes, that's what I want, or no, I want these things to be different. At least you can work on the plan, you can work on objectives, and you know what you need to execute. So in terms of audit your content, that's what I would say about this slide. Bruno?
And Patrick, in fact, in terms of assessment, is today, if you want to do any type of migration project, whether it's decommissioning or not, you need to have a solid assessment. There is no way that you can actually quantify a project without doing, a true assessment. I mean, there are so many customers when we talk today where without 360, they have no understanding, they have no idea of how many users are really using, not using, who are the power users. And
yeah, we have another slide on this. So that's again, trying not to say too much here, but absolutely when it's time, thanks to the assessment of your environment, what's been used and not used, what the users want and not want, you can now build your transformation project. You can have a project plan and you can quantify it. You know the type of people that needs to be used and when. And this is probably the most, all of these 10 steps are great, but that one here is the foundation of everything. So it's quite important. Shall I jump to 360 eyes, Bruno?
Yeah, sure. And overall with 360, we got a solution called 360 Eyes, and really the value there, Patrick, if you can go to full screen mode, the solution there with 360 Eyes is that we're able to extract all the metadata from Bobjet, and from there, we're able to blend it, do some BI on BI, and then provide all the assessment information. So actually, I see you've opened 360 Eyes.
Absolutely. Well, I've actually opened BusinessObjects, but yeah, 360 Eyes, it's BI on BI, like Bruno said. So we have some jobs. We're going to extract the metadata you have inside of BusinessObjects, CMS stuff, or Crystal, or universes, Webbies, your Lumira. So we're just going to go around, extract the metadata, save that in a database, and then you can do whichever analytics you want. Lots of stuff here about the security model and the impact analysis, but in the context of the second step here, I'll have a look at report documentation. So when you want to go back to your users and provide them with the information of saying, as an example here, okay, here's a report, that's my finance report. Well, this finance report, this is the query, this is what's coming from the universe. So these are the objects that are displayed within your reports, or not displayed, right? So city, in this case, it is not displayed in the report, or these are the prompts that you have within the report. So again, how to rebuild your parameters or whatever the equivalent is in the destination environment. And again, like I said here, the complicated bit, I have a good example here. You have a formula. This formula has this code here. This one is not very complicated, but some of you will know this can be tens and tens of lines of different functions. Well, you know how to rebuild that in the new environment. So document your report, the data you're displaying or not displaying, what the users may want, and the formulas that you have to rebuild. So that's in case of the content. And I'm doing it here with Webby, but I could do it with Crystal, Lumira, and others. What's also quite useful here is the actual data layer, right? In Tableau, it will be a Tableau data source or Tableau prep. In Power BI, it will be in Power Query, what you're going to change. And well, in BusinessObjects is the universe. And same thing here. Yeah, I have this universe. These universes have these objects, where it's coming from in the database. And if you want to know if these things are used or not used, yeah, so this universe here, for instance, I know that these objects are not used within any reports. Do I really need to put that in my new data model in my new environment? Well, perhaps not. If you have universe restrictions on your database connectivity, yeah, so yes, I do have these restrictions on or these row level security. So 360 Eyes will allow you to document universes, restrictions, the reports, and much, 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 much more.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So let's go to the step 3, which is around analyzing your session peaks and the licensing pool. So that's, behind basically there is a cost question, and that's quite important.
Absolutely, same thing. 360 Eyes, the same solution I've just shown you, will go on your system, have a look historically at the licenses, the name, the concurrent, peak licenses. So then you know what you need to rebuild, you know what you need to buy in the new environment, you know who needs to have what type of licenses, again, depending of which vendor you go to. This may make a difference, which users are using which peak. So total understanding of utilization in the context of licenses in this case. So then you can prepare better for the next one.
Thanks a lot. We've got the next quiz, which is we're curious to understand, where you're planning to go. If you've got some plans to decommission, whether it's a hybrid model or not, where are you planning to move? Are you planning to move to Tableau, Power BI, SAC, Click, or actually you're just joining by curiosity, and that's actually perfectly fine, of course. So
I like
we're kind of interested to hear where you guys are wanting to go, and of course that varies. So since we've got people from around the world on this webinar, from Europe and US mainly, we know there are different trends depending of your geographical zone. So Patrick, can you show us the results of the poll, please?
Yeah, I was going to say interesting, especially since the Magic Quadrant was released a few days ago.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, if we look at the Magic Quadrant, Microsoft was a top one, Tableau was a second, Qlik was a third one. Now, Bruno, you called it. You said in North America there's not a lot of Qlik, and well, 0%. So that's quite a statement here.
That's right. I didn't see that. That was that's quite interesting. You said, yeah. So
And it's good for me, with my new role as head of product. Well, maybe I don't need to rush to add Qlik.
we should have done a bet, Patrick, is since you're in the UK and pubs will be reopening soon, we should have done a bet on this poll, because I told you Qlik was not a good idea. So,
Well, Tableau Microsoft is obviously, where
and
to go.
SAC is out strong as well. So, it's that's quite interesting. So, and in fact, if I believe if we had done the same poll 6 months ago or a year ago, I think SAC would have been below, but definitely you see there's a momentum there.
Yeah, very surprising and nice to see.
So in terms of step 4, around scheduling. So why is it important, to talk about that when you do a decommissioning project? I know we had lots of discussions around that, and Patrick, do you want to comment around that?
I mean, there's no doubt a lot of you will be thinking about decommissioning because you want to go to new modern technology to have, the latest features in dashboardings and charts and maps and all of these things. And so there's no doubt about that. But let's not forget that business objects, and I'm sure you know this, it's still the market leader in operational reporting and scheduling and distribution of reports. And it's important that you have a complete view of what you schedule, where it goes, how often, which formats, and if you do report bursting or not, because most of these features will not be available in these new modern cloud platform like Tableau, Tableau Online, Power BI, SAC. So understanding that you have a recurring instance on a quarterly basis, sending a report as Excel to whatever email, because that's used by your customers or internal and all that. Well, have a look at this information, and you need to decide if the new platform you're going to can do it or not. And if it can't do it, how you're going to replace that, what is very likely a business requirement. And well, you may have to keep business objects if that's what you want, or then use something else. But yes, do have a look at your recurring instances, the details, and make sure you have a solution for these things.
And today, a lot of Bobjet users, they kind of like to receive automatically, their their instances, and every day or every X, and it's quite easy, and that's something that's been quite popular. So
so again, as you can see, sorry, go on, Bruno.
No, so this slide, is basically the type of information you can extract from 360 Eyes that will document, your scheduling, and show that you can actually understand what's scheduled, how long, provide very valuable information.
Yeah, the type, when, duration as well, where they go. Absolutely everything about the instances can be documented. And also, again, usage is important. these instances here, are they used or not, right? The ones that stay within business objects. So you can also find about what needs to be recreated or what's running but nobody's using either. So that's quite a good one.
So for the next step that we have, it's not necessarily an obvious step for a lot of people, but when you do this type of project is you want to make sure that you catalog, all your objects, and in particular, the sensitive objects that you have in your business objects.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I talked about security earlier, security of the content, of the objects, of the data, the restrictions. So yeah, if you have any reports that you may have tagged as sensitive or protected, again, this is something that you will need to rebuild or recreate one way or another in the on the new platform.
And very often, and for this type of information, it's important also to involve the business because they have the best understanding of what's sensitive or not. And sometimes over time, some of these platforms, have been up for years and years and years. And perhaps at work, initially the work to work on the description has not properly been done. And typically the users of the platform will tend to know best what's really sensitive behind. So it's another good example of why you need to involve your business, because they basically will understand how it's being used and why it's being used this way.
So yeah, so I talked about database connectivity and data layer earlier. Same thing, right? You build your new platform, your ODBC connections, your database drivers, the database security credentials, all of this needs to be recreated either in Tableau Prep, Tableau Data Source, in Power BI, in whichever the system it is. So understanding which reports is using which universes is using which connections. So we call that the impact analysis, obviously. So 360 can give you all of that information, but we can go down to extracting all of the metadata of these connections so you can recreate them properly without mistakes on the again on the new platform, and only the ones that you need to recreate. Again, thanks to usage. If they're not needed, it's a bit of cleanup at the same time. That's really important here.
And there definitely again is 360 is able to help you to map all your connections, and that's very valuable information because that tends to be a maze. So, and it's the same in security where you need to be mapping your security. So that definitely is always very complicated, and over time people tend to lose track of who has access to what are the inherited or double inherited rights, how are things connected. So it's very important there to take the time and map the entire security.
And you know how powerful the security model of business objects is. It is not the case with these other platforms. So it is likely that you'll have to make some choices, right? In business objects, users were maybe allowed to just do this, but not do that. You could be very granular into what you could add or remove. It's not going to be the case with Tableau and Power BI. With the others, I can't say, but it's unlikely. Business objects, it was a strength that they had. So again, document your security model. You will find out what people really had, and then you can decide what to recreate in Azure or in Tableau and so on.
And what's the value there of using a universe in business objects when it comes to security? Because you were talking about the advantages of Bobjet. Is that linked to universes, Patrick? And if yes, why? What can you say about that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, Bruno.
Thanks a lot.
As you can see, this is not planned.
is, people, or to rephrase it, Patrick, is when we talk to customers who went, for example, to Tableau, they say, you know what, okay, the security model is really different, and it's not, it's not as granular. And we wished, they would be using like some type of semantic layer, like universes. That's a good way to apply security or restrict things. So that, it seems to be a very common statement that we've been hearing from customers. So that's really where I always want to go. By the way, if you guys have got some questions, please put questions in the chat box, or if you guys are going to another BI solution, by the way, that we hadn't stated earlier, just please let us know, because there are some other solutions that are on the market, and actually we were not able to list all of them in the poll that we did earlier.
So somebody replied with Looker. Of course, yeah, let's not forget Google. They do have a strong offer here. So yeah, always keen to hear about the others that you might be using.
So Patrick, about this step is to find, who are the critical users and what's the critical content. Why is that step important?
Yes, so you'll need to prioritize what you want to do. You need to make sure that the critical users or the content which is used the most is recreated in the new environment, that they have been consulted in this process. It goes back to the security model, but also we talked about sensitive data. So again, we've been talking about a lot of metadata in this presentation so far, but that's because this is what you need to understand before you can plan and execute. So yes, take all that information we talked about so far, and then you can map what is critical in terms of users, what content is critical, and what you need to rebuild and how.
And then again, is 360 is going to provide you some reporting with its BI on BI capabilities to extract all that information, document it, and allow you to do the right decision. So
now we talked about usage, Bruno. Again, you have business objects for so many years now. You have so many reports that nobody's touching anymore, so many universes which were copies of other things, but you were not deleting or archiving perhaps because you didn't know for sure if it was used or not. Users have left the company, but things may not be well organized or not linked with Active Directory or something else. So you'll have a lot of unused content for sure. Again, don't waste any time analyzing, asking users about rebuilding or testing if it's not required. So 360, we talked about analyzing what's important. At the same time, thanks to users, we can tell you what is not important. So you either prioritize or you just don't deal with the content at all.
Yeah, and that tends to be a very strong time saver on that, because you've got to focus on what's really being used and not on what's not being used. It's the same then in any migration. It's just, don't waste time on things that are not used.
We talked about licenses earlier. It's not because you have 100 licenses of business objects that you need 100 licenses of Tableau. Maybe you do, because people were no longer using business objects, and they'll start using Tableau. Okay, maybe, but at least have a look at the utilization, have a look at the connectivity and all that, and you'll find out, well, we were paying for 100 users, we were using 50 perhaps. Okay, we planned some increase because some people want to onboard the Power BI, Tableau, SAC, but yeah, don't buy, don't recreate, don't test, don't investigate what is unused.
And by the way, when it comes to users, licensing, or decommissioning, make sure that you look at your license agreements. There is a very complex legal part that we don't want to get into, because it's really your decision to be going away or not, and you just need to make sure that you respect whatever is written in the license agreement, and you pay proper attention to that.
So you can see here examples of users who've never connected, or reports which have no actions. Well, these are the easy ones to obviously totally ignore. These old ones that have not logged on since 2018. Well, again, maybe you want do involve your users, your business, to say, hey, you've never logged on, do you need a license, yes or no? Or maybe it turns out they just don't even work for the company anymore. And same here with content.
So Patrick, the last step is around archiving. By the way, just a little joke aside, is if I send you a Bruins or a Maple Leaf cap, will you decommission your Canadien cap or something like that and change a hockey team? Is that a good deal? I should have done that bet with you on the clicks thing. It was not a good idea.
So everybody from the Boston area wondering what happened to Tom Brady, it's Bruno lost the bet, and Tom Brady had to leave the Patriots and win the Super Bowl somewhere else. So it's Bruno's fault, basically, what happened.
I appreciate it very much, Patrick, but at least I was supporting Brady on the last game, so I had that right at least. You have to give me credit for that.
And Bruno, that last step is one of your favorites.
Yeah, it's all about archiving. So whether you migrate or decommissioning is at the end, there's always going to be someone who wants to know, well, tell me how it was before. That's always the $1 million question. And if you haven't documented things, if you haven't archived things, there's no way you can answer that. And in particular, if your business object was containing some sensitive information used for SOX or GRC reporting, or having some PII, you need to make sure that you spend the time to do proper archiving and make sure that that is retrievable.
So we talked about backups at the beginning. Some people will say, hey, these reports, they're not used at all, I delete. Okay, go for it, you have a backup. Then what other people will do is, as they move on and they transfer content, I talked about finance earlier, so you transfer the, well, not transfer, but you rebuild the used finance content in the new environment, and then what you can either delete, thankfully you have a backup, but you may want to archive, which is another way of removing the content from business objects, but still have a way of recovering it. So and with 360, yeah, we have a lot of features to enable you to do all of these cleaning, archiving type of action. So let me just do a quick demo here, Bruno.
Thanks a lot.
So I log on here to 360. So this is the actual solution you would use to do the backups I talked about earlier, or if you want to roll back or undelete. We talked about changing your environments from being used every day to read only for some users, so you can take care of your security model really easily here. But in this case here, archiving, there are ways to, and again, this is all about automation here. Of course, you could do it manually within this interface, but as part of the project plan, you could say, right, okay, from midnight tonight, this Tableau content is now live, and this business objects content is deleted or archived, and you could schedule the entire process here. And with 360, we have lots of admin tasks where you could say, hey, I want to archive the instances or archive my content. There's other things you could say, right, these reports who are scheduled on a daily basis, I don't want them to be scheduled tonight or tomorrow, because I'm ready with whatever new solutions I have in a new environment. So update in bulk those recurring instances. Or the users have now been given authorizations on the new system. The content is available. You don't want them to use business objects anymore. You can go ahead and disable. You can delete, of course, but disable is a bit more clean. Disable the users, only the ones that you have switched over thanks to some templates. So we have, dozens, as you can see here, dozens of tasks to help you prepare the business objects environment and do that in bulk, automated. And if you make any mistakes, of course, you roll back or you go back to your backup, not a problem.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So overall, just to support the webinar that we've had today is got somebody printing something. Sorry about the noise. So overall, we've got basically a document that we'll be sharing after, or it's actually an ebook that we'll be sharing after this event, which is around how to decommissioning your business objects. So that's going to be available after that. And we've got some bunch of other materials that are available on the 360suite.io website. So additionally, we've put together like 2 packs around decommissioning. So one is called the Inside and one is called the Essential. So actually, if you got some interest in these packs, or if you want to know how 360 Suite can help you, feel free first, to put a comment in the chat box. And then the other one is, we're interested to know how we could help you in your project. Of course, we like to, if you made that decision, we'd be happy to help out. So just tell us, how we can help you. Is this just simply by sending you an ebook? Is this having us contact you, provide you some keys? And I've seen a lot of customers joining on this event today, and if you just want to get some training on our solution, so that's for the existing customers, just let us know, and then we'll make sure that we take the time to contact you. So no surprise, I see 100% of you guys all want to receive the ebook, so that I'm absolutely not surprised of. So our marketing department will be sharing that to you later this week, as well as the recording of the webinar later this week. So have no worries about that. So by the way, I see that we've got like perhaps 10 questions right now in the chat box. So just let's take a couple, Patrick, and let's close the poll.
Yeah, well, people are still voting, so I'll leave it open, Bruno, while we answer the question of Joseph.
Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you, Joseph, for the question. And Joseph is the one who mentioned he's using Looker as well, which is a great product. And his question is, I'm just reading, does Tableau or Power BI have a semantic layer like Bob J? Which universes for data governance? I don't think there's a similar product. How do other companies? Okay, so question is about what is the universe equivalent with other systems? Now, I can only speak about Tableau and Power BI. These are the two I know the most outside of business objects. But I'm sure all vendors have a very similar ways in their own rights. Now, there's no equivalence of the universe, right? So in Power BI, you have to go in Power Query. You'll need to import your tables. You may do some joins. You may transform the calculations or how you want things to be viewed. And then you decide if you want a live connection, if it's like just as you would have with the universe, or if you want to acquire or download the data and store it in the Power BI, which is something business objects cannot do. Tableau will be similar. You have a data source, which is much more basic than what you can do in Power Query, which is why there's Tableau Prep. And then when you build your dashboards, you decide if you want a live connection or if you want to extract the data inside of the Tableau. So again, as you can see, it's all around having a semantic layer, but each have their own subtleties or each have their own pros and cons of how it works. So this is something you need to rebuild from scratch. Of course, there's no migration tool. And as we mentioned, I think it was slide 2, step 2 or step 4, I don't remember, but one of the early slides is use the metadata, document the universe, document the objects that are used in the universe, what the formulas are, what the select statements are, what's used and not used, and then that will save you a lot of time to go ahead and rebuild those things in, for instance, Tableau or Power BI. Now you have to be careful about what's possible and not possible. For those of you going to SAC, SAC doesn't have the same database connectivity that you have with Power BI and Tableau. So depending on what you want, you may still need to have business objects on the side and have a hybrid model. So again, by documenting, thanks to the metadata, by documenting what you have today, what you use it and what you use, how you use it, by speaking to your user, then you will find out the amount of work that needs to be done on this new vendor platform. I hope I'm answering your question, Joseph. Otherwise, please just add another note.
We have another question from Raj. So Raj is asking, I guess it's $1 million question is, do you have tools on the market? I'm just reading. Do you have tools on the market that will allow you to convert your Webby and crystals to Power BI reports?
Well, not that I'm aware of, but I doubt there's anything like that. So again, other than documenting, so you can speed up the process of rebuild, it's a manual process as far as I know. I would find it hard to believe that there is a converter, but who knows? If anybody found one, please type the name in the chat. I'll investigate.
Thank you very much, Patrick. We have another question from Chris, actually, who's a consultant, and he's asking, do you often see business object used as a sidecar for decommissioning projects? So I'm assuming that he's mentioning sidecar where you're using business object, you're not fully decommissioning business object, and you're using business object to feed information or to use that as data dump. So I'm assuming this is what Chris meant. So,
and I guess perhaps that's meant as a hybrid model with SAC, perhaps.
That could be. Is it easier to? There's another question here. Is it easier to decommission a platform with Crystal or Webby reports?
I'd say same amount of effort. Crystal will have a lot of formulas, more because your Crystal, or although it's possible, most of you will have the Crystal pointing directly to the database rather than the universe. So understanding the database joins objects from the data model, Crystal is more powerful in terms of formulas and coding. So it may require a bit more effort, but again, thanks to the metadata, you can document everything. That will make the transformation process a lot easier than trying to reverse engineer without metadata or by just opening the Crystal and try to figure out what it was. And again, I didn't think about this until now, but it may be a totally different team doing the Power BI, the Tableau, the SAC. It may not be the business objects expert, and these people, by just opening a report on the screen or a PDF about something that is received on email, there's no way they know that last year's sales is whatever calculation that it was, right? Last year's sales is a measure. That measure could have been transformed in a million ways. So unless somebody understands the Webby or the Crystal or the universe and look at everything, that's going to be impossible for a non-business objects expert, rather than just giving them a report and say, hey, I've documented that report. That's the metadata. Go do your Power BI thing. That will make it tons easier. And then, that document can be used for sign-off purposes as well.
And let's take a last question. I see a question from Kate. Kate is asking, we're considering to decommissioning business object, and we're considering to do it line of business by line of business. Is this something that you recommend?
It's I think it's a good idea. It depends what your organization wants and what order, but yeah, you need to prioritize somehow, which is why we talked about what's critical and not critical, and yeah, and let's say I wouldn't start with my most critical, perhaps, department first. I will do a bit of guinea pig, smaller departments to see if my process is working well or not.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you on that, Patrick. So anyway, that was all. And on the screen here, you see, the different solutions that we have with 360 Suite, how we can help you, whether you've got upgrade plans, whether you want to do regression testing, version control, reduce costs. These are all the nice things that we do with 360. So by the way, we're going to end the webinar today. Please take a couple seconds as you go. So as you're prompted out, there will be a survey. So please make sure that you fill up that survey. It's going to take you literally just a couple seconds. And if you got some interest as well, please, type contact@360suite.io or go on 360suite.io and just let us know that you would like some help. Thank you very much. And Patrick, that was great to tease you around, the best hockey team. Next time we need to talk about bets of who's going to win the Stanley Cup. So I know definitely it's, you won't win on that game.
Well,
So
we'll
we got to
see.
talk about that next time. And
Still early days, but we have something for next time for sure. All right, thanks Bruno, and thanks everybody.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.